two, two, two. Check, two.
All right, good evening, everyone. So glad to be here. How many excited to be here tonight? That's right, that's right. You know what? When they say that democracy is dying, they didn't come here tonight. They need to come here and take a look at you. This is what democracy looks like, amen? So listen, my name is Eric Claville. I'm your local political and legal analyst here in the Hampton Roads area. You can see me on various news stations here across the Hampton Roads area, and also WNSB and also WHRO on Barbara Ham's Lee show as well. What we're doing tonight is that we're bringing you the people, the person really, that's making the difference in Washington for you. And that is none other than our U.S. Congressman Bobby Scott, representing the 3rd Congressional District here in the Commonwealth of Virginia for our Peninsula Town Hall. Listen, I say it all the time, not just because he's my friend, but he's the smartest congressman on the Hill. He's the one that reads the bills. So we're very fortunate to have him here with us tonight, and he's always one who seems to be everywhere at the same time, but he always shows up, and we're very thankful for him for all the years that he served us in his years of distinguished public service. But you know, tonight is about you the citizens, you the voters. This is your town hall. This is an opportunity for you to understand what the issues are and to hear directly from the decision makers and those that are fighting on your behalf. Now, I want to make sure that we have a few ground rules before we continue, because we have a phenomenal program for you. But when you walked in the building, you should have received an invitation for a card. With this card was provided for you in the event that you want to ask a question. So you simply put your name, locality, and also your email address on this card. Now, these cards are going to be provided to me, and I'm going to announce your name. Once I announce your name, just simply hold your hand up, and someone with a microphone, one of the volunteers, they're going to walk around and come to you for you to ask your question. Now, we're going to ask that you ask a question and not make a statement, okay? But I'm going to play the bad guy, all right? I'm okay with that. So I will ask you to ask a question or get to the point, but we're going to make sure that everybody is heard, and that's really what we want to do, make sure that your voice is heard. Listen, if you didn't get a card, or if you have a card, I want you to provide it to the staff person. Staffers, can you raise your hand? They're in the back, they're walking around, and if you raise your hand, they'll get your card and they'll provide it to me as well. So with that being the case, we're going to start, and we have a dynamic young man, Tyler Foreman, who will do our Pledge of Allegiance. Tyler is in the 4th grade and attends Jane Bryan Elementary School here in Hampton, Virginia, and he happens to be the grandson of the great bishop of this church. Let's give Tyler a hand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Tyler. Now I'd like to introduce you to our gracious host, the angel of this place, none other than our Bishop Riddick, who is the pastor of Gethsemane Baptist Church here that we're sitting. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to welcome Congressman Scott and all of you who've come today to share in, I think, a very meaningful discussion and conversation. So on behalf of myself, our pastor, and our leadership team, we certainly welcome each of you and pray that this will be a wonderful stay. May we bow our heads. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, we are grateful and thankful unto you for the gift of this day. We're grateful for our leader, those who serve in government, whether on the local level, the state level, and as well federal level, who've come this evening to share with us information, to hear us as we voice our concerns. And so we ask your presence to be with us, that you would guide us, that you would grant wisdom, but more importantly, your presence. We pray for our nation, for we have declared that we are one nation under God. So bless our time together. We give you thanks and we give you praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you so much, Bishop. Now we will have a warm welcome from the mayor of our great city, none other than Mayor Philip Jones. Let's give him a hand as he comes.
Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight? Well, I was told to be brief, so I just want to say if you're from Hampton, make sure you pay the double tax. We would appreciate that. But no, really, just thank you. Thank you to everyone that came out to make your voice heard. We look forward to hearing what you recommend and your questions. These are troubling times in D.C., but I know we have a strong partner in Congressman Scott, our hometown congressman. With that, I look forward to it. Thanks all.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much. And thank you, Bishop and Tyler, for opening us up. Before we begin, we'd like to recognize everybody's special guests here, each and every one of you. But we have some guests who are elected, and these are individuals that you have elected, their communities have elected to serve on their behalf in various capacities within our state and also local government. With that being the case, when I call your name, please stand, and please we can provide applause as they're standing as well. I'd like to, is Randy Bowman, Hampton City Council. Steve Brown, Vice Mayor of the Hampton City Council. Delegate Gian Ward. Howard Gwynn, Newport News Commonwealth Attorney. Hope Harper, Hampton City Council. Sheriff Karen Bolden of the City of Hampton. Gayleen Knoyton, Hampton NAACP. Terry Best, Newport News School Board. Michelle Farabee, Hampton City Council. Former Mayor Duddy Tuck, is he in the building? Former Mayor Duddy Tuck. I think we saw it. There he is. Look, he told me he didn't like to come to the front, so I knew I should have looked toward the back when he was there. But so glad to have you. Ann Stevens, Cherry, Hampton School Board. Councilwoman Tina Vick, Newport News City Council. Erica Calicut from Delegate Benita Anthony's office. And Angela Reason, our clerk of court here in the city of Newport News. Also, we have Delegate Marcia Price as well. Yes. And also our sheriff, Sheriff Gabe Morgan. There he is. Always protected. Are there any other elected officials that we happen to miss? Any other who happen to miss? Let me see my glasses. Yes, Christine, please stand. Chris Need, City of Hampton. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, thank you all for coming, all of our elected officials. Thank you so much. Now, we're going to start with a few introductions and a few greetings from a few elected officials before we get to our main event, which is our town hall, and to discuss issues that are important to you. First, we'd like to invite Delegate John Ward here to address us. Delegate Ward.
Thank you and good evening. It's an honor to be here with everyone this evening and to bring you greetings from the Virginia General Assembly, the House of Delegates, and the 87th House District. I've been asked to share some of the highlights from the 2025 legislative session. And you know, with a Republican governor and a Democratic-controlled House and Senate, bipartisan support what would be essential for any bill to be passed. But this year, we had 916 bills passed both chambers, and they were sent to the governor. But he only signed 599 of those into law. He proposed some amendments to 160, including the budget, and he vetoed 157 bills. These are bills that passed both the House and the Senate. But during the reconvened session, we sent him back 57 House bills and 33 Senate bills in their enrolled form. Additionally, 2 bills were returned with a partial agreement, and I'll tell you about that one. But there was a total of 92 bills that he wanted to veto, but we still were able to pass them. And I'm proud that I carried several bills in support of working families, and they included a measure that would have required workplace violence prevention policies. There was one that would allow people to earn 5 paid sick leave days. And again, the bill that I have carried since 2020 was to raise the minimum wage incrementally to $15 an hour. And then the support for SWAM, women, small women, minority-owned businesses. And then there's another bill, HIV PrEP medication. I want you to know that the governor vetoed all of those bills, each one of them. And the workplace violence bill was because what happened in Chesapeake, where the person went in and shot up Walmart. So the purpose for that bill was to make sure that there was a plan in place in case something like that would happen in your workplace. He vetoed that. Then the bill that would allow people, you work 30 hours, you could get 1 hour of paid sick time. He vetoed that. To raise the minimum wage, we've been working on that for a long time, and we have incrementally increased it, but we had to wait for it to be reenacted after another election, and he vetoed that bill. We came back this year, he vetoed it again, but I'm okay, because this is the last time he will veto any of these bills. He'll be gone, and I hope to come back, and this legislation will certainly come back again. One thing that we worked on really hard this year, you might have seen it on social media, is the Momnibus. Have you heard of that? Where we're trying our best to improve some of the pregnancy and delivery problems that women, black and brown women, face. So we've done that. And in the rural part of Virginia, there are a lot of women there. There are not that many hospitals, and pregnant women have to rely on midwives. But Medicaid did not pay all the midwives fairly. So we put in legislation that would make it all equal so they could all be paid at the same rate. The governor wanted to halt it for a year. You know how many babies can be born in a year? So we fought the governor on that, and I'm pleased to say that because we had a lot of bipartisan support, it's going to help all of those women in the rural areas make sure that they have. And before I wrap it up, I want to remind you of 3 constitutional amendments that all passed. And we will have to pass it once again next year before it's placed on the ballot. But we want to make sure that we have reproductive health care for all women. We want to enshrine marriage equality in the Constitution. And we want to guarantee automatic restoration of voting rights. It should not depend on the governor. So one more time, we'll vote on it in session, and the next time it'll come to you, and you will have a chance to vote on it also. I'm going to just say thank you to everyone for allowing me this opportunity, and I appreciate this opportunity to be with you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Delegate Gianna Ward, representing the 87th District and part of the city of Hampton. Thank you so much. Now we have Delegate Marcia Price, representing the 85th District and part of the city of Newport News. Delegate Price.
Good evening, and thank you, and welcome to the 85th District this evening. Thank you to my favorite congressman, Congressman Bobby Scott, for the opportunity, but he did tell me to be brief, so I'm going to jump right in. I am the first Black woman to be chair of the Privileges and Elections Committee, the longest continuously running committee in our entire nation, the first committee to vote on voting rights. And it has been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm speaking from my perspective, to kill the bills that would have taken your vote away from you and to pass bills that help protect your vote. But if you were here on a weeknight, you know that after we pass a bill, the governor has to sign it. So I don't want to cry over spilt milk, but I do want to let you know 3 bills that were vetoed by our governor so that you understand that it is about 3 branches of government supposedly working together. The legislative branch sent to the governor a bill that would have instituted the quiet period where it is illegal to kick people off the voting rolls within 90 days of an election. That is currently law for federal elections. This bill would have added it to state and local. That got vetoed. Then I had a bill that I think you'll remember, some folks that are citizens got kicked off the rolls because they were not citizens, but the DMV info was incorrect. Imagine being a veteran, having fought for your country's freedom and getting kicked off the rolls because of a mistake. The bill would have made them have more confidence in the information before you get kicked off the rolls. Got vetoed. And lastly, I don't know if you know, but in order for Virginia's election results to have been certified, there were two people in a county out west that refused to certify their elections, and that could have voided all of the votes that Virginians cast. This bill would have said, hello, we have all known that certification of election results is a ministerial duty for electoral board members, so go on and do your job, and if you won't, then the state electoral board can come in and do the job for you. Now that was vetoed. I want you to ask yourself, why would you veto bills that would make elections more fair? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. So check your voter status. Early voting for the upcoming primaries is right on our heels because we have 45 days of early voting. Check your status, check your status. Okay, so then after we get the bills passed, we have to have the governor sign them. So we have session during January, February, and sometimes March, right? Then the governor has a certain amount of time to either sign a bill, veto a bill, or send an amendment. Then we went, senators and delegates, on April 2nd to answer to those. And so you heard some of the actions that were taken. In order for an amendment to be accepted from the governor, it has to pass both the House and the Senate. If it is rejected, it then goes back to the governor. And so I'm not giving you an after-action report because we are still in play. There are bills that we sent back to the governor that he has until May 2nd to decide, do I sign it or veto it since they didn't accept my amendment? I'm gonna give you one instance. I have been carrying the right to contraception. There are many people in this room that are walking around thinking that their access to contraception is legally protected. It is not. And there have been members of a certain party that have stated out loud, we should recheck the Supreme Court decisions from the 60s that allowed for single and married women to make their own decisions in order to get contraception. Now, some of y'all are thinking about family planning. I stand before you with polycystic ovarian syndrome. Without my contraception and an IUD, I would not be able to leave the house. Now, some of y'all are thinking, well, that's mighty personal. This is a room full of people. Why are you talking about your IUD? Because it's at risk from being taken. This bill said nothing about doctors, nothing about minors. It literally said the state or no locality cannot pass an ordinance or bill that would get between you and your access and your doctor. That's all it said. Red herrings. This is for minors. This is for trans people. This is for this. All distractions. The bill was for the government to stay out of your medicine cabinet. And he sent back, no, don't clap yet, because I'm going to tell you why. Because I need you, before you clap, I need you to call the governor. So he sent an amendment. Now, there's a thing called a Section 1 bill, and Congressman, I'm getting done. There's a thing called a Section 1 bill. A Section 1 bill is a paragraph of a statement that directs an agency to do something or gives an opinion of the state. It is not legally binding and does not protect your rights. The amendment he sent back on the law we tried to pass to protect your right to contraception was a statement that says, Virginia believes in your access to contraception. Now, you take that to the court and see, Ms. Reason, would the judges be able to do anything with that? Absolutely not. So we sent that back to him. He has now until May 2nd, 11:59 p.m. to sign or veto. Now, let me just add this, and then I'm going to take my seat. How many of y'all heard of a state called Tennessee? Now, in my heart of hearts, I know unequivocally that Virginia is better than Tennessee. The Republican House and Senate sent this same bill to the Republican governor of Tennessee and are poised to have a state-level right to contraception act before Virginia. If you are not okay with that, I need you to call the governor and say, hands off our contraception, and sign the bill. That is something that you can do today. Now, I just want to let you know that I have more, but I don't have time. So, one thing that I need you to know, because he's going to talk about some things that are chaotic in D.C., and he is on the front lines fighting for us. There are some things that are just not going to go our way, and I want you to know what the state level is doing. Speaker Don Scott instituted the Emergency Committee on the Impacts of Federal Workforce and Funding Reductions, and they have met 2 times. Their meetings, if you hit up my website, their meetings are online and live streamed. Their next meeting will be May 12th in Wytheville. So they're going all around the state, and it's talking about how Virginia will respond to the federal chaos, because I don't know about you, but I'm here to protect Virginians. And so I do love the opportunity to talk with you. I always have more to offer than I have time, so I will sit down, but I'm here if you all have any questions afterwards. Thank you.
That's Delegate Marcia Price, representing the 85th District here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Listen, we have another guest that's going to greet us. It's the Chief Executive Officer from the Food Bank of Virginia Peninsula, Bob Latvis Jr. Come on up for us. But I want to remind everyone, while Bob comes up, let's give him a hand, that this year is election year. Say election year. Election year. Those 2 public servants that you just saw are on the ballot for re-election this year. Well, and we're not going to talk about what I say. Make sure you vote. All delegates on the ballot. So, again, thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you so much, and good evening, everybody. I've been asked to share a little information about what the cuts at the federal level mean to us locally here at the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank. But first off, I'd like to thank Congressman Scott for his tireless advocacy and leadership in this space and fighting for food insecurity for so many years. Thank you so much, Congressman Scott. There's really no way to sugarcoat this. I can only say that these are challenging times for us at the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank, and it's really due to cuts that we've seen in federal commodities that are allocated for distribution from those suffering from food insecurity. And that term, food insecurity, just the simple way to put it is, you're hungry, you don't know where your next meal is coming from. So there's a significant difference there from just being hungry from being food insecure, a significant difference. They're challenging times because we rely heavily on federal programs. Near the total of 35% of all the food that we distribute in the tens of millions of pounds comes from federal commodities. And it's distributed through something called the Emergency Food Assistance Program, which we call TFAP. So 35% of that is part of that program. 80% of that is something that's distributed through the Commodity Credit Corporation, CCC. And I'm not going to bore you to death with all kinds of acronyms because we'll all just glaze over here. But CCC is something that in March, we found that there was funding allocated for this, that $500 million of that was frozen. And $200,000 of that dedicated or allocated for the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank was put on hold. And we didn't, without any warning, without any notification, it was put on hold. The following week, we received notification that that was canceled. 6 truckloads of food. And we're not talking about any kind of food. It's lean protein, it's milk, it's highly nutritious food that makes for a solid diet for people who are most in need of these commodities. And it has yet to be replaced. So it's gone. So in the it also gives us pause to think of who this impacts the most. And on the Virginia Peninsula, there's significant food insecurity, but 2 really high-risk groups. One is our children. And there's about a 20% food insecurity rate on the peninsula. 1 in 5 children on the Virginia Peninsula experience food insecurity. The highest of any level of any food bank in Virginia. There's 7 food banks throughout the state. The second group that is highly impacted by this are our senior population. The largest group of growing food insecurity population in the country are our seniors. So it really gives you pause when you say when these cuts are indiscriminately made, there's not thought to say who do these impact the most. So we're taking great concern over how we are going to address that at the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank. What's troubling is that it's the lack of notice, it's the lack of heads up, it's an arbitrary nature of these cuts that are coming doesn't allow us to set up any contingency planning. It doesn't set up any time to do food drives, solicit donors, solicit retail. So we're under the gun because people need to be fed. So one of the things that we're lucky at our disposal is we do have funds that we purchase food, but it's not sustainable at the levels that we're being forced to buy food. Just to give you some numbers, and these cuts come at a time when food insecurity is on the rise. So when the need is getting higher, these cuts come into play, which just, it's you have to scratch your head and try to make sense of all that. But just to throw some numbers by everybody in attendance here, in 2002, our budget for purchased food was $573,000. In 2023, that number jumped to $900,000. In 2024, that went up by $1 million to $1.9 million in food that we're purchasing because there's need. We have to feed folks suffering from food insecurity. And this year it's over $2 million. And that's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable. So what we are going to be forced to do is distribute less food to the most needy people in our communities, our neighbors. It's a decision that nobody wants to make, but we're being forced into making these very hard decisions. And with Congressman Scott's support and advocacy, we're optimistic that there are going to be replacements for these cuts that have been made, but there's no promises. So we're just having to dig in harder, ask for greater donations, our retail partners, our farmers, folks that don't necessarily have the means to contribute, to ask to give more. The cuts that we have made, any slight pause in our supply chain or distribution has significant consequences for those that are waiting in line to get food. It's not that you can just stop a day and pick up the next day. That's hundreds of people that are going without in that one small snapshot of time. So now we've been weeks, and the demand is building up, and we need action, and we need action very quickly. And we're hopeful that we have a farm bill that can be passed this year in September with increased amounts of TFAP funding, appropriated funding that can't be cut, that's put into law. And we're also watching some of these resolutions very closely because the budgets that we're hearing are being talked about have significant decreases in programs that are very important to us, such as SNAP. And why it's so important to us is for every one meal that the Virginia Peninsula Food Bank can provide, SNAP benefits provide 9. So if those get cut, our lines get bigger while our supplies get smaller. And that's where none of us want to be. And we're hopeful, we're praying, we're confident that with the right leadership, this will turn in our favor. But I appreciate all your time and consideration in allowing me to share what's going on. We are hopeful. We're resilient. We're a resilient community that's always helping each other. We're going to continue down that path, but we're just hopefully optimistic that the climate will change and people will come to their senses because the right thing to do is to continue to feed people. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have, for the man of the hour who's going to speak with us, none other than our U.S. Congressman Bobby Scott. But before we do so, I'd like to recognize our Newport News Police Chief, Steve Drew, who's in the house. Thank you so much for coming. So, U.S. Congressman Bobby Scott, serving this district since 1993. Let's give a hand.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Mamie Locke had a conflict, and she's going to try to make it, but she said she was going to be real late, so she might be recognized later in the program. So we're going to get started right away and start with the first slide. As we get the first slide, I did notice that you said I was the smartest congressman. Regrettably, that's a mighty low bar. Here we go. Democrats are accused of failing to brag about stuff. Your work on the economy is generally judged by the number of jobs that are created. Joe Biden, in 4 years, I've just had a much monthly average higher than anybody else. But in 4 years, he created more jobs than any other president in the history of the United States. And in fact, more jobs than all but one, whether they served 4 or 8 years. Bill Clinton created more jobs in 8 years, but Biden created 16.2 million jobs. Reagan came in 3rd place in 8 years with 16.1. So next chart. Next slide. The other thing is, we hear a lot of speeches about the deficit. Now, I gotta admit, Republicans give a lot better speeches about the deficit than Democrats. But if you'll follow this very closely, you'll notice that every Democratic administration since Kennedy has improved the deficit that they inherited and handed over to the Republicans. What they handed over was better than they got. Every Republican, without exception, Carter, Clinton, Obama, Biden, all handed over better deficits than they received. And every Republican president since Nixon, without exception, made the deficit worse and handed over a worse deficit to the Democratic Democratic successors, without exception. And we'll find out in the budget that we're talking about now that this trend is expected to continue because, next slide, the Republicans are insisting on massive tax cuts, mostly to the wealthy, $7 trillion in tax cuts. The Republicans are saying that they don't have to pay for $5.5 trillion of that. It's made up. And so they added another 1.5 trillion for a total of $7 trillion. They will pay for that by $880 billion in cuts with the Energy and Commerce Committee. That's going to aim at Medicaid. $230 billion in the Agriculture Committee, and Mr. Levis just mentioned the problem with that. That's going to go after SNAP and other food programs, and $330 billion in education and workforce. That's probably going to be school lunches or student loans, Pell Grants. I don't know what they're going after in education and workforce. They will require a $5 trillion debt limit increase and add $14 trillion in new debt over a decade. This is a lot worse than doing nothing. I'm on the Budget Committee, and they set up and gave speeches for 11 hours. That committee meeting went on. 11 hours about how bad the deficit is, how bad the debt is, and then you look, we're voting on a budget that makes things demonstrably worse. Next. Now, the Affordable Care Act may be at risk. Tens of thousands of people in the 3rd District are at risk. 250,000 people on Medicaid. Those on SNAP will be threatened. Students may be losing some Pell Grants. We don't know exactly what happens, but the way the budget works is we passed a framework that directs certain committees to come up with certain targeted savings. The Republicans said that we accused them of cutting Medicaid, and their response is there's no mention of Medicaid in the budget. Next slide. They have tax cuts for the wealthy. Most of the tax cuts go to the wealthy, and they're cutting it with billions in SNAP, student loan affordability, and Medicaid. But the next chart will show when we accuse them, next chart, of going into Medicaid, it does not tell the Energy and Commerce Committee to cut Medicaid, but 93% of the funds in that committee are Medicaid. If you add up everything else, 440 billion, 210 billion, you can't get $880 billion without going into the Medicaid program. We will see later on as they put numbers on line items and flesh out the budget exactly what's going to get cut. But you've heard them whine about being falsely accused of cutting Medicaid. When you put the numbers on the line items, we'll see what that whining was all about. Next chart. Tariffs. I don't have to say much about tariffs. The jury is out on tariffs. The jury, better known as the stock market, when the tariffs were announced, the market went down more than it had on any one day since the last time he was president. And he explained it, and all the executive branch officials were explaining these tariffs for the next day, and the next day it went down more than that. And when he finally gave up and dropped the tariffs, the market went up, I believe, at least one of the biggest point increases on the Dow in the history of the United States when he admitted the mistake and went back. So anybody trying to defend the tariffs, you just look at what the jury said. Now, you can use tariffs if they are intelligently applied, but the way he did it across the board, everybody, he couldn't explain it. He said if you have a trade deficit, well, he's applying tariffs whether he had a deficit or not. It made no sense, and the jury, the stock market spoke. These are just some examples of the cost increases that will take place if all those tariffs and trade wars keep going. DOGE is the chainsaw going after people's jobs and services, and we'll see. Next chart. A lot of it came out of Project 2025 that was widely distributed before the election. They say it's efficiency. Let me tell you, you cannot claim that you are being efficient when the first thing you do is fire inspectors general. You can't say you have an interest in fraud when the next thing you do is go after the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. And we know that a lot of we can't get answers to questions, but as the ranking member on the Education and Workforce Committee, which includes the Department of Labor, he's all into the computer system in the Department of Labor. I just want to know what he's getting access to. We know that some of Musk's businesses are being investigated by OSHA and the NLRB. And I just asked, does he have access to the investigation files? I don't know. Just asking. And if he's all into these computer systems, does he have access if he's bidding on a contract? Does he get to see his competitors' bids before he has to bid? We don't know. We don't know. Next. And so you've got access to how people talk about the confidential data they have access to. Yeah, they get your social security number, your birth date, and all your personal information. But frankly, I would be looking more at fraud and corruption than the personal information. A lot of lawsuits have been filed. These lawsuits take time. Some have had injunctions to stop, but we haven't gotten really to the ultimate, whether or not they can eliminate agencies eliminate agencies without congressional approval. They talk about the Department of Education, for example. The Department of Education is an interesting thing. They say this test scores leave a lot to be desired. That's true. But test scores are a function of what the local and state governments are doing, not the federal government. Student achievement, curriculum, hiring teachers, teacher salaries, everything involved in really education is state and local. The Department of Education is really a civil rights organization. They are there to make sure that the promise in Brown v. Board of Education, that education is a right which must be made available to all on equal terms, is fulfilled. And so Title I of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act recognizes that we fund education with the real estate tax, so wealthy areas have a big advantage over low-income areas. So Title I money into low-income areas. Racial achievement gaps, where some groups are chronically undereducated. You need to identify and eliminate achievement gaps. That's the Every Student Succeeds Act. Students with disabilities are entitled to a free and appropriate education. That's what the Department of Education is, K through 12. Higher education doesn't tell colleges what to teach. It just makes sure with Pell Grants and student loans that students can get in. The idea that you're going to do anything with test scores by abolishing the Department of Education is absurd. That's all state and local already. But they're attacking civil rights by eliminating the Department of Education, which is consistent with their attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, attacks on civil rights that we haven't seen really since the 1960s. Who can be against, if you're not for diversity, what are you for? I mean, we haven't heard people campaign on segregation since the 1960s, and they did campaign on segregation. Equity, I mean, how are you going to be against equity? There is a saying, though, that for those who are used to privilege, equality seems like oppression. So maybe that's why they're against equity. And inclusion, how are you going to be against inclusion? What are you for? Are you for exclusion? And so we have a group that is aggressively pursuing an anti-civil rights agenda. And so the abolition of the Department of Education is certainly part of it. And with that, let's go to questions.
Thank you so much, Congressman. So, absolutely. So this was provided to me. Now, we probably will not get to every single person here on the list, but I'm going to pull randomly from this list. And when your name is called, please hold your hand up. We will have a staffer to come to you. We still have some cards out. Please limit your question to 60 seconds, and then the congressman will respond.
He said don't make statements. If you're going to make, you can make a statement. Just keep it brief. And give the next person so we'll know who's next.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we've altered the rules just slightly, but we're going to make sure to accommodate. All right, Regis Collins. Regis Collins, could you please raise your hand? Regis Collins, right there in the back. And then also, Larissa Owens. Larissa Owens, please raise your hand. Larissa Owens. Larissa Owens. All right. Yes, whoever is first. All right, we'll go here. Is that Ms. Owens?
Oh, sure.
Right,
Yes,
please.
thank you for taking my question. I'm really concerned about the current administration's ability to imprison people without due process and be transported across state lines, and especially in violation of court orders now. So I'm just wondering what more can be done in terms of repealing the laws that they're using as excuses for these acts, and in terms of messaging, just getting people aware of the severity of this issue for the next election.
It is not clear that they have violated a court order yet. The courts have not found them in contempt. They are playing games with the courts, and I'm surprised that some judges haven't thrown somebody in jail by now, the way they're acting. But they're right on the brink, and the judges are giving them a little more time to comply, and it is, I mean, the most recent is the shipping of immigrants who are alleged to be gang members to El Salvador. They said that you can't do that. And there's one who is clearly illegally in El Salvador, and they're going back and forth as to what to do. At some point, the judge has to just draw the line and said, look, I told you who did not follow the order, and just start with the lawyer in front of him. Did you understand the order? And how did they end up there? If you told somebody and they didn't follow the order, all right, otherwise it's you. And go down the line and find out who did not follow the order. But the judge has been very lax in seriousness. Now, the point about no due process has been a problem in a lot of these cases where it's according to public records, these people were alleged to be gang members, rounded up and shipped out. Well, suppose someone had a response, no, I'm not the gang member is the one down the street, it's not me. When does he have an opportunity to make that case? No, he's in the plane on the way to El Salvador. No due process. And if the suggestion is that all undocumented people ought to be concerned, let me tell you who else ought to be concerned. Everybody. If they can pick somebody up with no due process, if you were a citizen, where in that process did you have an opportunity to make your case? So any of these things, any of these situations where there is no due process, and they went through this in after 9/11. There were war on terrorism. They were arresting people, charging them with being a terrorist, no due process, and the case was in Norfolk. Just says, no, you may not be a full-blown trial, but you have to give someone a legitimate opportunity to respond to the charges before you start taking action. And that is a problem not only in this bill, a lot of other bills where they said if you're a criminal, this is going to happen to you without any finding that you are in fact a criminal. So you're exactly right, and everybody ought to be seriously concerned about their rights the way these people are carrying on. So I appreciate your question, and we're bringing it up every time we can, and we're seeing this in the El Salvador case where they've admitted that the person did not get due process, is sitting in El Salvador, and they say, well, my bad, but we're not going to do anything about it. Are you kidding me? And the judge has a responsibility to hold them accountable and throw somebody in jail if they don't get them back.
Thank you very much. We have Regis here. And very quickly, before your question, we have 3 microphones working, so I'm going to call 2 more names so you'll be ready. Wayne Davis. Wayne Davis, can you please raise your hand? Wayne Davis. Also, Katrina Bailey. Katrina Bailey. Katrina Bailey, could you please raise your hand? Right there. All right. Thank you so much, Regis.
As a transgender member of your constituency, things have been a bit difficult recently with this current administration. And I was wondering if, as a member of the Equality Caucus specifically, if you have any insight on what steps you and your colleagues are taking to protect the rights of your transgender constituents and what the outlook might be.
This administration and, frankly, my Republican colleagues I don't think they have missed a single opportunity to demean and attack transgender people. Now, they ran ads in the last campaign, and I think people have to recognize that if they can target and deny rights to that group, they're not going to stop. There'll be another group and another group, and the saying out of Nazi Germany is that when they came after the socialists, I didn't complain because I wasn't a socialist. When they came after the union members, I didn't complain because I wasn't a union member. When they came after the Jews, I didn't complain because I wasn't Jewish. And when they came after me, there was nobody left to complain. Well, you better draw the line on the first group, whether you belong to that group or not, because they're not going to stop. And we have, the Equality Caucus has spoken out. On our committee, it is essentially a straight party line vote every time they attack the rights of transgender individuals. It's a straight party line vote. All the Republicans join the attack, all the Democrats say no. I would point out that there was testimony in the Senate from the NCAA that there were 5 transgender athletes in all of the NCAA. 5. And everybody gets all upset and joins in the attack. But I think just on a party line vote, and Democrats are there to protect the rights of everybody. We just have to see what happens. We need 4 Republicans to join us, and we can put an end to those attacks.
Thank you very much. All right, two more. Very quickly before your question. Chris Jones. Chris Jones, please raise your hand. Chris Jones. All right, right over here.
Congressman, thank you for your service. Other than attending rallies and financially supporting Democratic candidates, what can we as individuals do to confront Trump's lawlessness?
There are two specific things that people can do. First of all, acting as individuals has limited effect. You have to join groups and work as groups. There are a lot of organizations that are out protesting and advocating and educating the public. Join those groups. That's one thing. And the other is when you see these lawsuits being filed, let me tell you, most organizations, when they file one or two lawsuits, after that, they're broke. At last count, my last count was about 130 lawsuits have been filed against this administration because every day they're trying to do something else, and some group files a lawsuit. The Democratic Attorneys General have been active, and a number of other groups. When you see the name of the group filing a suit that you like, send them some money. So that's two specific things that you can do.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we have two more questions. One. All right.
Good evening. Thank you very much for being here tonight. My name is Katrina Bailey, and I run a program for parenting families in higher education. And I am very concerned about the fact that Pell Grants are not going to be funded appropriately for these families to continue their education so that they can better their lives in the future. And again, also with C-Campus grants, to be able to have childcare so that they can be in school. And so I'm just wondering, what are the things that are happening at the federal level that are going to continue to fund these programs?
Well, in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, when there was a Democratic majority, we had a goal of doubling the Pell Grant. Several decades ago, the Pell Grant covered 80% of the cost of going to a state college. Now it's about 30%. So when students are getting these massive, crushing student debt, that's not their fault. It's just that we're not funding the Pell Grants like we used to. If we double the Pell Grant, we'd only get up to 60%, not the 80 that it used to be. So we were on the way. When the Republicans took over, they level funded it, and now it's a target for on the budget. We're going to do the best we can. I've introduced the Road to Success, Road to College Success, which that staff came up with the name, but it happened to be RCS, which are my initials, which start off with doubling the Pell Grant, reducing the interest on student loans, giving support to students when they get to college, because getting them in is just the first step, making sure they graduate. So a lot of things we're trying to do. But frankly, we're on the defensive. The $330 billion that has to come out of the Education and Workforce Committee, there are limited options, and financial aid to students, I think, is going to be a big target. Now, frankly, I don't think they can pass the budget with the Medicaid, education, and nutrition program cuts. But also, I didn't think they could pass the framework because everybody knew that there's one Republican said that 2/3 of his constituents were on Medicaid. He abstained from the vote. So we'll see how they vote when it comes to the real live numbers on line items. But the financial aid to students are under attack on this short term because they have to try to pass their budget, which includes some massive tax cuts for the wealthy.
Great. Thank you so much. We have a question here. Yes.
Hello, my name is Chris Jones. The question I have is how we're going to get big money out of politics. It has controlled too much of the stuff we're seeing now.
And if you look at a Supreme Court race in Wisconsin where individuals were anteing up, and I think Musk put in, what, 10, 15 million dollars in one, from one source. The Citizens United case just blew a hole in the idea that we could control money in politics. Frankly, it would probably take a constitutional amendment to get the money out, and then you'd have to control the other kind of ancillary, getting money, slipping in the back door. I don't know how we're going to get money out of politics, but there is entirely too much money, and you're going to see it in the General Assembly races, in the little House of Delegates races. It's much telling on my age. I spent, I think, $29,000 in my race, and I was running against, there's a 3-member district in Newport News, and I outspent the 3 incumbents' joint campaign, $29,000. They will be spending in single-member House of Delegates districts, a lot of them will be spending over $1 million. You wonder where they're going to get that kind of money. And it has unsavory aspects when you raise that kind of money to how they're going to behave when they get to the General Assembly. I agree with your concern, but I think we're talking about constitutional amendment before we can do anything.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to have several more questions, but before we do, I'd like to acknowledge Senator Mamie Locke, representing the 23rd District here, Senate District here in Hampton and Newport News. She'll be addressing us at the end. All right, Shantae Horton. Shantae Horton, raise your hand. Shantae Horton. If you still like to ask, okay. Linda Williams. Linda Willis. Linda Willis, would you like to, please? Right here, would you like to ask your question? All right, we have someone here. Also, Kim Terry. Kim Terry. Kim Terry, are you here? Raise your hand, please. Someone will come to you. Also, Vicki McGill. Vicki McGill. Vicki McGill. Raise your hand. Right there in the back, right there. All right. Thank you so much.
So recently I found out that there is a, I found out the House passed a bill that would require proof of citizenship for federal elections. Do you really think it's going to pass the House? And
The Senate.
it's the Senate, and it's just it's another way to disenfranchise minorities.
And women, because one of the little glitches in that bill, the SAVE Act, which requires you to prove your citizenship in order to register to vote. The little glitch is if you find your birth certificate, or go get it, or pay the money to get it, and it's not the same name that you're using now, like people get married and change their names. It has limited what's up with that? I mean, you can't go in there with a birth certificate with a different name and think you're going to register to vote. Maybe you can get your marriage license to show and put it together. But for those that are registered, it probably won't have, if you're already registered, you could probably stay registered, but if you move and want to register somewhere else, you're going to have a time trying to prove your citizenship. Now, you add to this the initiative of this president to eliminate birthright citizenship, so which adds the question, and he wants to institute that now. I think most people think it's constitutionally absurd to try to suggest that if you're born in America, there's any question about your citizenship, but he wants to raise questions about it, which means your birth certificate is useless in proving your citizenship if he got his way on that. And so how do you prove your citizenship, particularly for those that have different names? The fact is, I don't think they care. It's hard, and if it's hard to register, that's the point. They say it's to eliminate non-citizens voting. Why would a non-citizen have a public record that can be, and show up and vote, and it be ascertained that they voted? It's a matter of public record that they showed up, and that's a crime for which they could be deported. They don't do it. So why are you disenfranchising probably, I think the number is about 70 million people, because a couple of hundred might be registered to vote illegally? The point of it is to disenfranchise people. There's no other point to it. And most of the people disadvantaged will be women, a group that vote Democratic, and so that's why they're a target. They know how to target people and have little schemes to disenfranchise targeted groups. In fact, there's a bill in North Carolina that had a lot of voter suppression parts to it, that the appellate court said targeted African American voters with, quote, surgical precision. And they meant that because they went through and had an analysis of the effect of eliminating Sunday vote, early vote, this vote, that vote. Everything that had an adverse effect on the African American community, they put in a bill. If it didn't, they left it out. I mean, they were not, that's why they said with surgical precision. And so this has nothing to do with the sanctity of the vote. This is all voter suppression. And the idea that they have a glitch that affects 70 million people that would have trouble registering to vote, they've shown no concern about. I think the gist of your question was, what's the chance of passing in the Senate? Unless they reform the filibuster, as long as they got a filibuster in the Senate, it has no chance of passing.
Thank you so much. Next question. We have about 10 more minutes, 10 minutes before we invite Senator Locke to address us. Next question, please. Yes.
We can go right here in the back.
Good evening. My question is in regards to Social Security for those who are retired as well as those who are disabled. From what I've read, and I haven't seen it on their website, but if you have a My Account, they now want you to create a Login Gov account in order to continue to receive your benefits. If you don't comply, you risk the chance of your benefits being held. But when you go to the Social Security's website, you're not seeing this information being put out for people to find out these changes. And I'm concerned with those who may not even have the Social Security My Account, particularly some seniors and those who are on disability.
The Social Security Administration is a victim of the DOGE cuts in the federal civil service. First of all, they view civil service as a jobs program. And if somebody, they cut, the only thing that happens is somebody loses a job. Those, I think, that are a little more sophisticated will recognize the civil service program as a service program. People are hired to provide services. And if you cut people's jobs, they lose a job, that's not a good thing. And it discourages everybody who's left behind. But there's services that aren't being provided. Social Security Administration, I think at latest count, if you call them to get a simple answer to your question, you could expect to stay on the phone on hold for 6 hours before anybody answers the phone. That's because they fired so many people who were answering the phone. And they are just figuring out that when you fire people who answer the phone, people aren't going to be on hold for 6 hours. There is belief that if you make the Social Security system a little dysfunctional and it loses support, it'll be easier to cut the program or even privatize some of the aspects to it. I think in terms of everything, the changes have nothing to do with fraud, everything to do with adding confusion to the system, and to the extent that we can just get people, just get them to stop what they're doing, everybody would be a lot better off. So I don't know what there are a lot of questions on the internet about what is going on in Social Security, but you're not going to get a good answer because you can't get anybody on the phone.
We're going to go back here first, and then we'll go.
Dr. Senator Locke, you want to welcome the,
Yes.
well, just say hi so that people know who you are.
Hello, you know who I am.
All right. Senator Mamie Locke.
Hi, I'm Mamie Locke. I represent the 23rd District in which you now sit, which is all of the city of Hampton and parts of the city of Newport News.
Okay, thank you. You want to mention anything significant? You worked hard during the last session.
I worked very hard during the last session. The last General Assembly session ended on February 22nd, where the House and the Senate agreed on a budget that was very beneficial to many of you here in the 23rd District and very beneficial to the Commonwealth of Virginia. I will give you a few highlights of that. It added $1.1 billion to provide immediate and ongoing tax relief to Virginia families. It reduced the support cap of $222.9 million to remove the support cap on public education. It also added millions of dollars to special education add-ons. And most importantly, to here on the Peninsula, it added $500,000 for Greater Peninsula Cares, which benefits Gethsemane Baptist Church right here. $500,000 to Hunger-Free Campus Grant Program, $20 million for HBCU partnerships, which the governor cut $4 million out of, by the way. I'll get to that in a second. $20 million rental assistance pilot program, which the governor cut out. $800,000 to African American Cemetery and Graves Fund, which the governor cut. $500,000 to BIPOC funding, and $200,000 to Hampton Roads Transits, which the governor also cut. The governor had 205 amendments to the budget that we sent to him in February. We went back on April 2nd, and of those 205 amendments, we only sent him back 40 because we did not address the others that he sent to us. We did not approve them. So right now he has to make a decision by May 2nd as to whether or not he's going to sign that budget or veto it completely. We also, during this last session, agreed to 3 constitutional amendments. He has nothing to do with those amendments. And those 3 constitutional amendments are: 1, an automatic restoration of rights amendments, a women's reproductive rights amendment, and a marriage amendment. What happens now is those amendments will go back to the General Assembly in 2026, and if we pass them then, they will then come to you as voters, and you will vote on them in a referendum. You have the final decision as to whether or not those 3 constitutional amendments will be added to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia. So hopefully you will vote on those. And that's it.
Thank you. Give Senator Locke another round of applause.
All right, we will continue with our questions.
Okay. My question's kind of broad, but in this particular climate, I guess, the way things currently are, what are realistic expectations for those of us that aren't Republicans, for the Democratic Party that is definitely in the minority, to be able to accomplish during this particular time, especially since it seems like those 4 Republicans that are needed seem to be very well entrenched.
Well, I wouldn't give up on trying to find across the country 4 Republicans to join the Democrats, because you're talking about people who would be against massive cuts in Medicaid, massive cuts in other health care programs, massive cuts in education. It doesn't take many to join us. It's just hard to believe that they can get all of them to support that kind of budget. Your question really reminds everybody about the budget, the original budget to keep the government open about a month ago, where the House Democrats voted no, but it passed on a pretty much party line vote, and went to the Senate. And the Senate, although they have a filibuster and they needed Democratic votes, went ahead and passed it. That was, I think the public was disappointed. I tell you, somebody more disappointed than the public were House Democrats, because you have been asking questions and everybody's been asking questions, what you gonna do? Why aren't you doing this and that? And they said, we're legislators. You know, others can protest, we're legislators. So we have an opportunity to legislate, and they give it away. We should have gotten something for those votes. We should have gotten a commitment not to cut Medicaid, not to cut Social Security, a commitment to follow the law on appropriations. If the bill passed and we pass a law by Congress, signed by the President, that you will not pick and choose what you're going to appropriate. You'll appropriate according to the law. We should have gotten in there. You can't eliminate agencies that require congressional approval before you get congressional approval. I mean, you get something. We didn't get anything. So hopefully there'll be another opportunity. The debt ceiling is going to come up. People think it might be a little quicker than we think. It might be May, June, July. That's a daily calculation on what comes in and what goes out. But that would be an opportunity to be heard again. And in September 30th, when we need a budget starting October 1st, will be an opportunity. But the passing this framework on the what they call reconciliation, putting numbers on line items in the framework budget that they passed, will be another. There are a couple of opportunities we'll have, but we really missed, I think, our best opportunity to speak. I think my sense is that we may be able to stand up in the next opportunity better than we did the last.
Hi, Congressman Bobby Scott. I want to say this. They said, come to the town hall meeting. Listen, I'm disabled, Medicare and Medicaid. I need in-home help. It's been over 3 years that I need surgery. You're charging me a copay of $1,286.58. You're getting more of my money than I am. How can I get help? What, on the street? That's the only way?
Did you say you're on Medicaid?
I have Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay, talk to somebody in my office and we can look into that, because if you're on Medicaid, you shouldn't have that kind of copay.
Yes, that's the copay I have.
Get Thomas's card and give him a call. We'll look into it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And also, if anyone else has an issue, make sure you connect with one of the staffers of Congressman Scott's office, and he will definitely have his office address it. All right, we're going to continue with questioning. Charles Hill. Charles Hill, are you here? Raise your hand if you'd still like to ask your question. Bill Lee, are you here if you'd like to ask your question? He's over here. Bill is over here. We also have Sharon Nichols. Sharon Nichols, are you here? Would you still like to ask your question? Right in the back there. Okay, good. We have 3 questions. All right.
Good evening, Congressman Scott. My question's already kind of been answered, but I've got another, and this is concerning the way that our immigrants are being treated. Do you feel that the Supreme Court's recent, what I consider ambiguous ruling on the status of Mr. Garcia has helped the situation or hindered it?
Mr. Garcia, he's the one in El Salvador?
Yes.
It was unclear. I think the judge needs to be a little more definitive and not let these people jerk them around. Somebody, the way they're acting, really ought to be on the way to jail because he issued a clear court order not to take those people to El Salvador. If you look at the timeline, at least one of the planes had not left. Some were in the air, and they said, well, they're in international airspace, so you don't have control over international airspace. That's nonsense. These were federal employees that the secretary of the agency can call and say, turn the plane around, and they'd have to comply with that directive. They need to find out who exactly did not comply with the order. Did the lawyer not convey it to the agency? Did the agency get it and just ignore it? I mean, and you don't just, I mean, this is serious. You can't let people violate a court order without sanctions. Now, what these people might do in a contempt of court situation, I mean, they'll have the opportunity to appeal, and we'll let the Supreme Court decide whether or not someone who violates a clear court order ought to be sanctioned. We'll let the Supreme Court decide that. But the order in that case is still a little fuzzy, and they're still trying to let them get around the, and they just need to, the judge just needs to lay down the law, said, I gave an order, you ignored it. When you come back to court, somebody bring a toothbrush. If it's not you, the lawyer in front of me, it's you until you can point the finger at somebody else. But I mean, you just got to let people play games with court orders.
All right, thank you so much. Next question, please. Is it Billy? There we are.
Hey, Congressman Scott, thanks for taking my question. Just wanted to see if you could comment a bit about the separation of powers and the dangerous boundaries we're crossing, and you know, what safety nets are left. A lot of people, and I believe this is a bipartisan issue, are wondering, you know, our safety nets are breaking down, and we're just in uncharted territory now. So, you know, even our military is being placed at risk. Our leaders are being, you know, people of earning positions are being discarded, and puppets are being put in place. So, interested to hear your thoughts on that.
There are 3 branches of government, and when one goes astray, I mean, the legislative branch could be a check and balance, but Congress works kind of as a bunch, and the majority rules. If we ask a question, or if we want to take a position, it's the majority takes a position. That's why we need 4 Republicans to join us. If we've asked many questions and haven't gotten answers, if we show a majority answering the question, it has kind of an inference. If you don't answer it, we're going to subpoena you, subject to law, subject to incarceration if you don't answer the question. But if we can't get a majority to ask the questions, then Congress, which should be a check and balance, is acquiescing to everything that Trump and Musk are doing. The court is the last hope, but they're slow. I mean, it's supposed to be slow. They're deliberate. You know, so we may not get decisions on that for a little while, and by then, the Department of Education would be all decimated. The SBA, I think they've lost half their employees. Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, half their employees, or most of their employees are gone. And once they're gone, the agency can't function. So it's slow, but we could be a check and balance. One check and balance is just to subpoena people to answer questions to find out what's going on. I'd like to know what the plan is for the Department of Education. Do they have any plan for student loans? I mean, the idea is to send it to the public position, to send it to the SBA. We've been hearing kind of whisperings that the SBA doesn't want it, particularly after they lost half their employees. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen to student loans? What's going to happen to the Office of Civil Rights and Education? Are people going to get their Title I money? How is that going to be distributed? What's going to happen with students with disabilities? I mean, what is the plan? We can't get an answer. We asked, there's a formal process called resolution of inquiry, which forces the Republicans to actually vote on it. We want to ask these questions, and they voted it down in committee, the Education Workforce Committee. Yeah, we have checks and balances, but if two of the branches are in cahoots and the third is a little slow, it's not going to be a good situation.
All right, thank you. Sharon Nichols. Sharon Nichols.
First of all, thank you so much for being here tonight, Congressman Scott. I have a real concern. With the dismantling of the Department of Education, how will this affect affordable, quality child care for working families in our community? And with cuts in USDA, how will this affect funding for child care centers that provide healthy meals for our children every day? How can we combat this? What can we do?
Well, we have we had proposed child care legislation that includes enhanced Head Start, affordable child care, limiting it to 7% of the family income, a lot of ways to make things better. But as your question suggests, we're on the plan defense. And the president's budget, we expect to have no money for Head Start next year, which shouldn't come as a surprise. If you read Project 2025, Head Start, elimination of Head Start was in there, along with the elimination of the Department of Education. You know, these people didn't even have the common decency to lie. They just told you what you're going to do, and they just put it out there in print. People didn't believe it, but here it comes. The nutrition programs are at risk. On the Department of Agriculture, we've heard from the food bank that they've cut back on food banks, but a lot of the if the Agriculture Department, committee, is going to fulfill their responsibility of coming up with $200-some billion in cuts, it's got to be in nutrition programs. So, like I said, we're on the defense. We need 4 Republicans to join us, and we can defeat the efforts to pass that budget that will decimate child care programs and nutrition programs. We're trying.
All right. Congressman, our time is drawing near. We want to thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you to all of our elected officials that also came. These are our public servants. These are the ones that are fighting for us. These are the ones that are on the front lines. Thank you for your support as well. If you have any questions, personal issues that you would like Congressman Office to address, his staffers are in the back. Here in the back, they're waving their hands. They're at the table. They'll be more than welcome to take any question that you have and answer them. Congressman, you have the last word.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody. Everybody here has seen on television what town halls look like on television. We do better than that here in Newport News. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. We're going to have additional town halls we're not afraid of having town halls, and we want to hear from people, to hear their concerns, and we're going to do the best we can to address them. As the questions have inferred, these are tough times, and to the extent we heard, what can you do? Join those organizations that are out protesting and everything, and send money to those that are filing the lawsuits, because like I said, those organizations file 1 or 2 lawsuits and they're usually broke. But again, thank you so much for coming out.